Thank you. Thank you, Johnson. Thank you, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. But now I'm in Beijing. I should say good night. Now it's 11 o'clock p.m. So anyway, thank you so much for the great invitation. So let me share something. So I was a journalist for 8 years, and have been the executive dean and professor of Chongyang Institute, Renmin University of China, leading a think tank in China for 8 years too. So I'm really confident in speaking about the relationship between think tanks and the media. The key point which I would like to share today is that during the outbreak of a pandemic, the social position of think tank and media have been challenged unprecedentedly, and the three negative ideologies in the world are increasingly impacting the proper roles of think tanks and media in the world. Please allow me to explain in detail. First of all, think tanks and media share one similarity. They both produce and disseminate ideas, knowledge, and wisdom. So this production and dissemination have contributed immensely to modern human civilizations in the 20th century. So especially since the end of the Cold War. So both think tanks and media have showed signs of convergence due to the rise of professionalism, what I want to say. So the leading think tank nowadays increasingly have media functions such as Brookings, CSIS, RAND, the Heritage Foundation, and other well-known think tanks. They spend more than 20%, 30%, or 40%, even 60% of their annual budgets on social communications, including website development, conference organization, report presentation, social media, etc. So for higher quality communications and influence of ideas. On the other hand, top media nowadays are increasingly similar to think tanks, such as Forbes and The Economist, of which research reports have high quality and playing guiding roles in development of the world economy. So this trend also confirms the theme of today's conference, think tank and media. So what I want to say is that think tank need media and the media need think tank. But more importantly, think tanks in 21st century should enhance their media function and should learn more about how to spread the ideas to influence the government. And the media responsibilities include the need for serious dissemination of ideas instead of the tabloid and the gossips. So this is what I want to say. But I believe that they are the consensus. You will agree with them. But I want to say that what worries me now is that because of the COVID-19 hitting the world nowadays, the humanity is facing the biggest crisis since 1945. Nearly a million people died from the coronavirus over the past 7 months, and 200 million people faced unemployment or wage cuts, and tens of thousands of companies or enterprises went bankrupt. In this very special period, think tank and media, to my honestly, did not playing a positive role as they should be. In other words, we can say that the roles of think tanks and media are far from the level they are expected. More than 6,000 think tanks and 40,000 newspapers and TV stations around the world should rethink about itself. First, the think tank and media should stop the spread of the crisis in March, but the reality was not. By then, the virus had hit the whole world, and the think tank in every country should have provided policy advice and suggested governments to adopt the social isolation in order to stop the spread of the virus as much as possible. The media should have urged all the people to believe in medical science and encouraged them to wear masks. Unfortunately, think tank and media failed to do so. Second, think tank and media should find ways to promote international cooperation and human solidarity. But the reality is that they did not, or we did not. I'm a think tank scholar too. If the two major powers, China and the United States, had cooperated to fight against the pandemic since March, and if think tank and the media had found a way to promote the global governance, perhaps they would not be so many deaths. But unfortunately, some think tank even found ways for the Trump administration to suppress China or add fuel to the friction between China and the US, and even lead the relationships of the two countries to the brink of the new Cold War. So, but what I'm not complaining about think tank and media. So I'm a think tank scholar too. Many think tanks and media are in many countries are very rational, professional, but their responsibilities have been impacted by three major ideologies, three very, very negative ideologies. The first one is anti-intellectualism. Many people in countries who do not believe in science and medicine, and who do not recognize the opinion of professional research institutions. Some of them, or many of them, believe that this pandemic is a conspiracy or biological war, and so on. So the belief in the conspiracy of origin of this pandemic, instead of promoting people to unite against the COVID-19, now has become the mainstream of public opinion in some countries, so as to suppress the influence of the professional think tank and the rational media. So a very interesting phenomenon is the Dr. Anthony Fauci, the top virus expert in the United States. He is very, very professional, but many Americans don't trust him. This is very interesting. The second reason against the professionalism is populism. In number of the countries, there are a lot of people who put individual interests and the freedom above all things, put too much faith in the feelings of the ordinary people rather than in the opinions of professionals, or in the interest of collectivism. So for example, many people in some countries initially did not believe that wearing masks can protect their health, but believed that wearing masks affected their freedom. So they did not care if they were affected by the COVID-19. So as we know, wearing masks can reduce the chances of infecting others. That's the second point. The third reason against the professionalism is Trumpism, Trump, Trumpism, Trumpism. What I want to say is, prior to my honest, President Trump doesn't trust the media and rarely use think tanks. Trumpism greatly trusts personal experience. And what's worse is that he tweeted to rule the country. And each Twitter has more influence than most media and think tank. And under the impact of the Trumpism, the United States, as a world, the unique superpower, became the irresponsible and did not do the leadership. Instead, it became the biggest source of contagion in the world after April, to my honesty. So my conclusion is that, how can we do? How can we do? I have 3 suggestions. First, the first is to rediscover consensus. Think tanks and media have to rediscover the common ground. Nowadays, a very serious human crisis is happening right now. So it's not a conspiracy. It's not a biological war in any country, but a real human disaster. The disasters should have been reduced, but they are still spreading. At present, the virus in China has been basically under control, and the economy has recovered more than 90%. And in 2020, China economy will be the only one with positive growth among the world major economies. But Chinese are very worried about the security of the world. The United States is still the country with the largest number of the infection in the world. And the number of infection in India and Africa will surpass the United States very soon. And once winter comes, the virus is still in danger of recurrence. 1 million people will die soon. And we cannot have 1 second 1 million and a third 1 million. So if we do not have a consensus, it is entirely possible that more than 3 million people will die due to the COVID-19. So think tank and media needs to consider the various ways to this end and provide effective advice to our government. And this first point. And second point is that to respect life. Life only comes once. We all know. Every life has his or her own family. Freedom is very, very important, but life is more important. In the past 7 months in China, from babies born only about 30 hours to elderly people in their 100s, and from foreign students in China or foreigners in China, China has spared any efforts to save every life. So human value and dignity must be based on life security, life safety. So think tank should criticize those extreme idea of freedom first, and the media should spread the value of life first. So in my opinion, free competition is correct in economy, but it's wrong in crisis. The third point is unity and cooperation. Nowadays, China-US relationship are currently at a very dangerous stage. The Chinese government has started on many ways that China is unwilling to fight the Cold War with United States. And China hopes to have dialogue with United States and hopes to cooperate in fighting the pandemic with United States. But unfortunately, most of the American people, most of American officials cannot hear. So American societies has been deeply influenced by the Trump Twitter, and American diplomacy and soft power have been destroyed by the worst Secretary of State in history, Mr. Pompeo. So if there is a new Cold War or even a hot war between China and the United States, it will be a greater disaster for mankind. So think tank and media all over the world need to find ways to promote China and US cooperation rather than provoke the struggle between the two countries. So finally, so as a veteran journalist and a think tank director, so I'm wondering, or I'm asking a historical question to you about the future. After 100 years, in 100 years in the future, so how will people in the future describe our generations of media people and think tank scholars? If nowadays the situation continue to be worse, will the future people bring us for our lack of wisdom and strength, for being the instigator and slacker of this generation's crisis? So please, my friends, so think it over and over with me. So that's all. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you.